So you should have already watched the lecture on texture, the texture lecture, where I talk about different ideas around the concept of texture and also a little bit about how it's applied. You have an exercise where you're going to create your own texture samples. So you're going to do either spheres or cubes, and I have some examples of that in the module, so you can see past student projects where they've done that, demonstrating different kinds of texture. Okay, and then you have a project as well where I provide a couple of still lifes that I want you to choose from to do your project, which is going to be a very detailed texture drawing. These need to be in graphite. The second half of this module, we're going to talk about using pen and ink. So we're going to use pen and ink and brush and ink. But for now, I want you to use graphite. I want you to use the full range of your graphite pencils. So what this is these are the still life images that I provide for you to use so that there's some consistency, so I can see what your drawing is based on, so I can assess whether or not you've captured the texture correctly and how well you're translating that information. So I'm just going to go through these examples. There's a couple of discussion threads. So you have your project where you'll use one of the first 3 images in this slideshow as your subject matter. It's project 4, I think. And then there's 2 discussion threads. One where I'm going to ask you to do a timed drawing of a paper bag, a crumpled paper bag, and then a pumpkin and gourd for different time durations, and really focus on the texture. And then the next thread, discussion board thread, is you will pick 3 of the images from this slideshow on your own and decide which ones you want to do, and you'll do the same thing. You'll do timed drawings focused on texture based on whichever of the images you want to use. So this is just kind of like, it's kind of like with the value exercises where I just walked you through the slides for what's available for you to use. So that's kind of what this is. Okay, so this is project 4 still life option 1. This is project 4 still life option 2. In the past, this one tends to be the most popular one. I think it's because people love cheese, because I love cheese. And this is project 4 still life option 3. So you'll choose one of these 3 images, and you will do a very detailed texture-oriented graphite drawing of this. For your projects, I don't want you to use the little sketchbook paper, and I don't want you to use the newsprint. I want you to use the big drawing paper. Okay, so the big, nice drawing paper is what you'll use for this. Okay, so then on that first in-class exercise thread, you're going to do a timed drawing, a 5-minute drawing of this paper bag. So when I say your first paper bag drawing, this is the bag that I am talking about. And I want you to really pay attention to how the value relates to the texture. So every time there's a crinkle in the bag, it shifts the value, and that's what tells us about the texture and the topography of this object. So this is your first bag. This one is just one that you can choose for your drawing later. When I say the crumpled bag for you to draw, I mean this. So this is your crumpled bag for your drawing in that in-class exercise thread. This is actually a watercolor painting of a bag, and the reason I include it is because I think it's kind of interesting to look at the way value and texture are assessed in a different media and then translate that into graphite. So there's a lot of rich detail here, and it's already being kind of filtered through watercolor, so it makes it kind of an interesting thing to draw. So that is your second bag, your crumpled bag drawing for that discussion thread. And then, so these are some of the options that you can choose for the discussion threads where it's you pick which things you want to draw. And then the third one is this. So this is your pumpkin and gourd drawing that's referenced with the paper bag drawing. So this is your final drawing. I think you have 20 minutes for it. And again, I want you to really focus on the texture. So when you go into this, look at, for example, this yellowish gourd that's on its side that's in front of the pumpkin down at the bottom. When we think about that gourd in terms of its value, it has its whole value story as an object. We have the highlight area on the top, we have our midtones, we have our core shadow, but also each one of those little bumps, little textural bumps, has its own value story. So each little bump has its highlight, its midtones, and its core shadow. So you can really see how the value relates very directly to depicting texture. So in each of these elements in this image, I want you to pay close attention to the value, and that's going to help you tell the story of the texture. When you're working in texture, I don't want you to just use blending. I want you to also use hatching, cross-hatching, stippling, or circulism, or a combination therein. So that goes for your bag drawings too. I don't want you to just use smudging with your graphite. I want you to experiment with these other textural kinds of application, okay? So those are your assigned images for the exercise. And then for the other thread where you pick which thing you want to draw, you're going to pick 3 of these remaining images and use them as your timed subject matter to do more drawings. And again, like I've said repeatedly in this class, you should draw more of these on your own. The more you draw outside of class, the more you practice the concepts we work on in class, the better your drawings are going to get, the more successful you're going to be. So all of these have a lot of very textural kind of elements. A lot of them are sort of fall themed. I think I put this together for a fall semester because we have a lot of fall themed things, but also gourds and pumpkins have such nice textural elements. And skulls. I'm always a big fan of drawing skulls because there's a lot of information there for value and texture. So go through these and pick out which ones you want to do and do those 2 discussion threads. Okay? I'll just skim through the rest of these, but you can look at these on your own and kind of determine which ones you want to do. Just keep in mind, again, texture is the focus, and the close thing related to texture is our value. They're kind of like this. So make sure that you keep that in mind when you're working on this. Okay, so this slideshow is in Canvas, and you can go in and pick out whichever ones of these you want to work with. And that's true in the future as well. If you need other still life ideas, or if you're just drawing on your own, you can always come back and check these out. All right, have fun with your texture drawings.